did that on purpose. Yeah, very intentional. It was
Well,
out
you
of the
look good
front.
intentional. I like the V-neck
Thank you,
t-shirt.
thank you, man. I just didn't want to go back in the room and risk waking up the 3 year old, so I kept the V-neck on. So thank you. I'm glad it looks all
Hey, it's all about refresh, refocus, rebuild. You gotta start somewhere.
right. That's right, man. Stay in the process too. That's
That's
good.
right. Stay in the process. And something that you said in in one of our previous conversations about that I really liked. It was about I liked how your theme of your website was no longer focused on the past. It was focused on the present and
Hmm.
the future. And there's
Yeah.
this book by Eckhart Tolle called I think it's The Power of Now.
Hmm.
It's got a spiritual uh I think it's more of a spiritual book than anything else. So it's focused on basically how people can get too fixated on the past and too fixated on the future instead of being staying in the present moment. So it has
Yeah.
Buddhist principles behind it, but ultimately, I thought it was. I'm listening to the audio book right now, so chapter three. I'm in chapter three. I think it's pretty interesting so far.
Well, to that point, I think it's interesting how, as you said, a lot of us, or probably most of us, at least at some junction in our lives, focus more on the past, whether it's the things that have harmed us, hurt us, we dwell on that, or the things that we feel like were great about our lives, and we get stuck there. And and then on the contrary, we are looking for that next big moment, that next big thing, whether it's the end of the work week,
Yeah,
starting on Monday, ooh, I'm glad the weekend gets here, or whether
yeah,
it's, you know, I'm looking for this big trip that I'm going on in a year, and I
right.
can't wait to get to that. And it's like rushing on. But as you mentioned, one of the key principles with the refreshing focus rebuild framework, and I think just something that most folks who are highly successful would tell individuals is we want to be able to embrace the present and get everything out of the present while we're building for the future. And I think that's something that is elusive to many of us because we don't necessarily understand the principles of time management and focus and balance. So focus plus balance, I say, and I say this in reflection from your real equals productivity. So there's this balance that we need. We need to be moving towards our goals, but we also need to be working with the spirit of excellence in the things that we're doing. And when we can, I mean, you talk about compartmentalization at times, and when it comes to time and our activities, when we can do that, and we can start doing it to fidelity because of the principles, we find that we get the most out of life. We get the most
Right.
fulfillment out of life because whatever we're doing in that moment, we're actually in the moment.
That's true. That's true. It's like looking at a coin. There's heads, there's tails, but what people don't really think about is there's actually a third side of a coin. And that third side is the edge. When you're right on the edge of the coin, you're neither one side or the other. And so that's kind of it's things are built like the whole Trinity concept is kind of built into humanity, the one and the
Right,
two and the three. And
right.
so, you got your people that lean to the left, you got your people that lean to the right, and then you got the people that are kind of merging towards the middle. And that
Mm-hmm.
they kind of you can't say they're either one way, they're just kind of one way or the other, you know?
Right.
And I think at the end of the day, that's just having the awareness of which extreme you're going towards is very important because if you don't have that understanding of yourself, then you are going to oscillate, between
Yeah.
the two. And sometimes sometimes some people, they may need medicine, they may need good relationships, but at the end of the day, our lives are meant to be lived with a plan and a purpose.
Right.
Whether it's, hopefully it's for good and not for evil.
Right.
But that's the humanity aspect of it, you know. If it's interesting that in the Bible, it's all kind of traced back that when everything was created, it was good, you know. So I think inherently we all understand, like, nobody wants a bad life.
Right. Exactly. No.
It was never meant to be bad. It was inherently meant to be good.
Right.
And so those things are important to remember, you know.
Yeah. That's a great point. You're right. So we're all trying to gravitate to the good life,
Yeah.
and it's interesting. You mentioned the Bible. One of the I guess most significant mentionings of that was to me was Jesus when he said, I've come to give you life and life more abundantly.
Mm.
And we're all seeking for that abundant life, whether we know it or not. And speaking of, like you said, kind of this with the three parts of things, or the three aspects, you think, not three aspects, but um I'm thinking that a lot of times individuals, when we talk about balance and focus and where we're trying to be, you got those individuals, and I actually talk about this, but you got those individuals that um
You're so
and I'm
lucid this
talking,
morning, by the way.
you say what?
You're so lucid this morning.
Oh,
Very
really?
awake. You know that? Yeah.
I've been up since
Isn't this
about
like this? This is the second one we've done early in the morning.
yeah, but I've been up since about 4, probably.
Ah, I see.
I've been right here at the computer. I haven't moved, so I've been working at the computer. So when it was time, the only reason I saw your text late is because my phone was on Do Not Disturb, and I was
Yes, it
thinking,
is.
yeah, and I was like, it's 4:20 or 4:18. I'm like, James should have said something. Let me check, and sure enough, you had texted me. So yeah. Um, but one of the things that I talk about kind of in simplicity is individual A, B, and C. And the individual B is in the middle. You got A and you got C. And I'm talking about working professionals. I've got the one that's A is an individual that is really focused on providing for the family. That's how that person was trained, but they focus so much on that they really don't think about their own goals or anything. It's just like, I'm going to work, I'm making money, I'm taking care of responsibilities. Then you got individual C who's so goal oriented and climbing the ladder that they don't spend a lot of time with family, whether they're married or not. They're still kind of have this sole focus on goals, and so they're not making a lot of time for other people in their life. And you see that a lot of, especially, I know I see it when I watch these shows about love and all this kind of stuff. These folks, they've lived 30, 35 years of life, 40 years, just gathering. Then they're finally like, oh, I want to settle down now that I've finally achieved all this stuff. But anyway, I'm saying this because you were talking about it's good to know where we are on this spectrum. And then you've got individual B that's in the middle. And individual B has this understanding that I'm focused on my family and responsibilities, but I have a need to also move my life forward through goals. And you and I've talked about Maslow's hierarchy, and that's one of those needs, the self-actualization, being able to manifest this life that we desire is our highest need. And so we all, I guess, when we're talking about the good life, in theory, we all are working to be more like individual B on a daily basis. We should be, but we have to know where we are.
You know what I find interesting? I find interesting that how people think and how they speak and especially how they put stuff down on paper is a reflection of, not always, but sometimes, a reflection of what they kind of personally, how they can personally view life. Because what I found interesting is how you spoke about individual A. To me, that tells me the type of person that you are. You're the type of person that puts your family first, and puts your personal goals behind, because that's what you put it. That's how you put it on paper. You see, person that's selfish would have put what you said in category C, individual C, as individual A. You know, that's
Okay, I see
how
what
I
you're saying.
think. You
Yeah,
see,
yeah. And
because it goes back to theological principles that Pastor Chris talks about, and I'm pretty sure most theologians, anyone that's trained as a pastor, would say this. They were studied to look at the order of first mention within the Holy Bible. So what's mentioned first takes priority. So
right.
because the Catholic Church, those that canonized the Holy Bible, there was an order and a purpose behind which books, the order of which books, regardless of the age of the material. So, so I found that interesting that when you were talking about individual A, B, C, I understood the concepts of what you were saying. But as you were telling me, I was listening, I was like, I think that's more of a reflection of his nature, of who he is, which is great.
Wow, well, that is
I
great,
know you
but
probably didn't think about it like
I
that, but
didn't think about it, but that's cool. And
it's a reflection. It really is, because that's also, I also know you outside of you writing the book. You
right,
see?
right. And I also say this, individual C, I learned from that because at one point in time in my life, I was, of course I wasn't married, but
Yeah.
I was individual C, because
Yeah.
that's what I was goal oriented so much. And,
Yeah.
you know, anything that we put all of our mind and heart and soul into, which it should be God, which is we should keep God first, and that will keep the balance in our lives. But sometimes, if we're not careful, we can get so engrossed into something and so passionate about something that it becomes that idol for us, and it it just drives what we do. And so yeah, that was a season of my life where I was so focused on my business stuff and goals. And it's ironic because as I look back on it, I can just remember the Lord, trying to keep me with this balance. And it's almost like I would keep coming back to this, trying to get to this balance place. And then, something almost like a drug, something else would come and lure me back over into that
Yeah.
place. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's the thing too, is when you get off course with not all things, some things, sometimes it becomes like a habit. When people say idle, another way of kind of looking at it is a habit. You get in a habit of doing it, and it becomes almost like your muscle memory takes over on it. You don't really stop and pause and think about it. So that's why it's important to bring yourself into a better place of self-awareness and pausing and take a self moment of reflection. And that's where even looking at your thoughts is important too, taking a pause on your thoughts.
Right.
And
Right.
easiest way to really do that is through, because you got to remember, growing up, I grew up in a Buddhist household. So I did not grow up with Christianity. I grew up in an environment of where I was learning those principles of that religion. And I was never pushed to be one way or the other when it comes to my faith. It was my mom just wanted me to choose a faith that I would be eventually committed to. And so I practiced meditational breathing and being able to calm my mind, being able to focus more on the actual physical act of my breathing, and being able to kind of recognize thoughts as they came into my mind, both good and bad, and let them go. And also to the ability to it just gave me a more relaxed approach about things. So it's important to be able to find some type of activity that will basically calm you down for a season, you know?
Right.
No matter how short it is.
Right. So as you're talking, man, something came back to my mind. It was funny to me. I mean, I'm not this is look, to each his own, but the other day I was scrolling on Facebook and I see this headline and it's like, see what the most successful people are learning and doing right now, and
sounds like a great sales pitch.
Yeah, and it's like the art of I forget the name, but it had to do with breathing, right? So it's like they talk about the art of breathing. But here's the thing, man. You go to the page, and it's just funny to me. I mean, like I said, to each his own. But like, and you just see people like, and like you see like aerobics like aerobics class, and people just on the floor all at the same time, and I'm just like, oh my god, to each his own. But that was hilarious to me.
Yeah. You sure it wasn't an intentional joke?
No, it was
people
not,
were really
bro.
trying to do that seriously.
It was not. Yes, bro. I'm gonna tell you, like I said, to each his own with that. But no, let me stop saying to each his own. Some of this stuff, yeah, I'm just gonna call it out. Whatever. I'm not saying that's wrong because clearly
seems a little weird to me.
Right, it's weird. Yeah, clearly there's like scientific basis to it, but it's just weird and like kind of like cult, like just looking at it. It was just weird. But anyway, I know it's not a politically correct term for that, but let me just correlate that with something else.
Weird is not. Weird may not be. Look, if people can't say stuff is weird, then our world's gotten way too much.
I said cult like because I mean it looked like that. That's what it looked like. It was just doing a weird ritual. I mean it's cult like, so I guess it's not wrong. Well, I mean it's not like I said it's a cult. I said like
you didn't. It's cult like. You didn't call them a cult.
Like what they're looking at. Yeah,
cult like
what they're doing. Right. Okay, you're right. All right. I know I get a little sensitive. So
why are you so sensitive?
Huh?
Why are you so sensitive?
I don't know, like I'm working on not being so sensitive to others that I mix all my words. That's what I mean. You know what I mean? We live in a society where we've got to be able to say something.
Hey, this is, our stuff. At the end of the day, it's comedy. It's good conversation. It's comedy. Hey, we're just having some fun here. We're just getting weird, okay? That's all it is. We're just we are getting weird. It's okay.
Weird. That's right. Getting weird.
It's okay.
Plug. Hey, so look, man. This was weird. I don't know if you've seen this trend, this fad, but folks on the internet are wearing these huge shoes. I don't know if you've seen them, but if you remember the
like clown shoes,
yes, like if you remember the Smurfs back in the day, they had those big shoes, white shoes. But one of the Smurfs, I don't know if it was Papa Smurf or not, had these big red shoes.
Okay, now
anyway, bro,
I'll let you know if it's Papa Smurf. Did that Smurf had a beard?
Yes, I think so.
That's Papa Smurf.
Papa Smurf, yeah. I think he had red shoes. Anyway, so what's crazy is, bro, and I'm not.
Did Papa Smurf really have red shoes?
One of the Smurfs had red shoes. I'm just not sure.
Well, I know. What was the female Smurf? What was this female Smurf? Was it Daphne? It wasn't Daphne.
I don't remember her name, but I know the one with red shoes wasn't a female.
Okay, because didn't she have white high heels? The female Smurf,
bro. I don't remember that. It's been a long.
I remember Gargamel and Azrael.
Yeah, it really
the guy
brings back
fun cat.
Fun memories as I think about the Smurfs. Anyway, so man, folks are wearing these huge red shoes that look like Smurf shoes, big and round, and I kid you not,
clown shoes.
Like then, huh?
Clown shoes.
Yeah, but bigger than clown shoes.
No.
Bro, they're bigger than clown shoes. I mean, their legs look like twigs in them because the shoes are so big. When I say they're big, okay, let me give you a size comparison.
Okay, so I wear like a size 8.
No, I can't even compare it like that. The shoes
Oh,
are bigger, are probably about the size of 2 gallons of milk put together. Two milk jugs, two huge round milk jugs put together. That's the shoe. And so literally the shoe is as big as when you put two shoes together, it's almost like as big as half their body. And people are wearing them as a fashion statement or whatever. Or just bro, they can't even walk in them.
so this is not like a fashion show trend. These are people just walking around in these shoes.
Yeah, and it's like, well, I don't know what it is exactly, but it's some kind of fad. And I think the shoes, like any other thing that's really silly, are super high in price, I'm sure. I'm sure they're like $1,000. And people are just putting them on just to, take pictures on Instagram and share it on Instagram, things like that. I had to
Wow.
look more into it. It was just so like
It,
baffling.
it definitely it definitely caught your eye though, because you were
Caught my
just like
eye. I was like, really? But it goes back to this breathing thing. It's like people are just becoming more and more weird. But maybe 40, 50 years ago, the stuff that we're doing now, folks would have said, yeah, when they looked into the future, they would have said we were really weird. So maybe, no, I don't know. I think it's just happening at a really fast clip now. We're just getting weird because if I'm in real time, if we're in real time and we can say this stuff is weird, that means it's not happening subtly. It's just they're really, really weird.
I think so. I think so. I mean,
Oh man.
life was and it's not just because I'm getting older and time's flying by faster. When I was younger, things were slower.
Yeah.
Things were a lot slower. And people like I thought I read an article in a study where the youth, and you may be able to attest to this, the youth are having such a hard time disconnecting from their smartphones that if you take the smartphones away from them and say, hey, we want you to just sit and have conversations, it's just not, they can't, it's a hard adjustment for them to do that.
Very hard.
Their
They
social
go
skills are very, they're kind of, they're just, not that they're timid, it's they know how to communicate, but they don't know how to communicate verbally.
right. That's so
Which,
true.
interesting enough, for those that have that skill, which I think it's more of a skill now than it ever was, those that have the skill of public speaking or even private speaking and speaking in general, they are going to have the ability to move and motivate other people around them
Yeah.
for hopefully a good gain, but for a personal gain as well,
Right.
because the people aren't used to communicating verbally.
Right. Right. Speaking of that, um, I actually did a mock interview. I participated in some mock interviews at my school. Where I was one of the interviewers of some students in the marketing class yesterday, and when I asked him about strengths and weaknesses, one of his weaknesses, and this is I would say 80%, 90% of these young people today, teenagers, but one of his weaknesses was he wanted to use his cell phone all the time. And I got that. And that made sense to me, but I was interviewing him for a front desk position and
Mhm.
at a hotel, and that was one of his well, that was his main weakness. He's like, yeah, it's hard not to use my phone. And we do have to let me see. And I agree with you. They're able to communicate, but what I see, being a teacher, what I see is that they can communicate. They
Right.
can communicate uh decently, but a lot of their communication is more so looking at the phone and talking about what they see. So it's
So
still
they're
not
not able to listen.
they can listen, but if the reason studies have shown that their brains have changed because of that they've grown up in this digital age and been consumed by all this stuff. But
Right.
you think about it, it makes sense because their whole conversation pattern is just different. They can listen, but 80% of what they do daily as far as communication is looking at the phone, showing each other, talking about it, responding to something on the phone, texting each other about something that they saw.
Oh,
You
so
know,
it's
so it's
about a
less,
device and not about each
right,
other.
right, exactly.
Oh,
It's less of that.
interesting.
So, um,
Which is becomes, you may or may not agree with this, but what I think it would end up becoming is that they're not going to be able to identify behavior in each other
mhm.
as easier because they're so relating it so much through a device instead of each other. Being able to
Right.
actually look and see behavior, like actual physical behavior
Mm,
or emotional behavior, mental behavior within a human being. Because if all that attention is drawn to a device, the communication through a device, you can use the device to kind of mask what's really going on,
right.
you
But
know?
let me tell you why you're so spot on. Um, right now in the education world, one of the major needs is the incorporation of social emotional learning in the classroom. And and I believe, based on what you just said, I really do believe the reason why that's such a need right now, like for it to be, formally taught, is because we've lost that art
Mm,
because of all the use. Because I mean, I don't remember growing up, there being any emphasis social emotional learning. We talked, we
yeah,
learned from each other. That was
yeah,
what we did.
right.
But now, because I'm sure, I know studies have also shown how, that isolation through cell phone use and all this kind of stuff increases depression and anxiety and all these different things. So you've got all of that now, and again, I do think, even what you said with behavior, not being able to identify patterns and stuff like that, that makes sense. So there's, and I've seen this trend. I saw this about 5 years ago. I started seeing this lack of empathy.
Yes,
Um, and that was just like so clear to me. Like
yes,
when I got into the school system, I'm like, wow. And and that's why we see a lot of what we see, murders and things. Don't get me wrong, murders have been going on a long time, but a lot of that stuff was driven by, it was crime driven, it was money driven. Now it's a lot of what we would call senseless murders. Just
or
folks.
and which could be rooted in
Yeah,
mental health development,
exactly. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. So that goes back to the point that even though these individuals, and I'm gonna kind of broaden the scope of it, not just to the youth, but even to adults and even the aging adults. And if you think about it, this is very the potential possibility. As human beings, we were not designed to be alone, but by using these smartphone technologies, I don't think, I'm not an advocate to say that we need to ban all social media, ban smartphones. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the possibility that as we become using, you know, a device more and more, we think we're actually socializing, but when in reality, we're isolating and it's just us ourselves in the room with a device.
Right.
And it's creating this false sense of actual socialization instead of the actual true developmental socialization of communication within the best form of communication is the highest form of communication obviously is communion with the Lord, but the I would say the next lower below it is when you're actually physically in a room with somebody
Right.
communicating.
You know what's funny, man? Uh, just to that point, got had a circumstance yesterday in the school. This was last period of the day, I've got seniors, and
Mhm.
a lot of them were out on a field trip. So me and some of my students were able to have really in-depth conversations
That's good.
about we talked about God, the Bible. We talked about double standards of men and women in society, all these different things. Well, one of the young ladies that engaged in the conversation, she was just saying how refreshing it was to talk about this because at school, she's like all the she said she couldn't find individuals at school she could talk like that to. She was just saying how all of them thought the same way, and a lot of that has to do, as we know, with the influences of society, social media, music, etc. But I was just thinking, we all were in this room having discussion. No cell phones were brought out.
Yeah.
There was no
Yeah.
cell phones. Occasionally, somebody might look down, and it's so funny
Yeah.
because when they would look down, you could see them kind of getting drawn in and zoned
Yeah.
out for a second, but they would put it down, and that's even a skill in itself. Just like the young man I interviewed yesterday, the skill to be able to self-regulate and understand, okay, I'm going to give myself time to look at my phone. This is a benefit or an incentive. I'm going to look at this for a while, then I'm going to get back to work. And that's something that I try to even teach my students, that skill of self-regulation. And that would help with social and emotional learning and mental health.
Hmm.
And that also relates to adults. As you were alluding to earlier, the issues with us as adults, a lot of us haven't learned how to self-regulate in a
Yeah.
healthy way to be
Yeah.
focused on the things we need to focus on and balance with the things we need and have a balance we need.
And that all kind of that's a callback to, you know, being able to stay inside of the present moment,
Right.
recognizing that, I kind of put a little too much of this time and attention into that, being aware that that's, you're doing that, and that's hard to do at times. And I lost my train of thought.
Oh, well, perfect. I'm gonna interject right there. So, man, one of the things that's been put on my heart recently is actually to get the Refreshing Focus Rebuild curriculum into schools to
Yeah.
help students with time management, self-regulation, being more productive. Because I've been thinking lately in school, school has traditionally been about, completing your assignments on time, these different things. And I'm like, time management really should be the preeminent thing because before I can get my assignments done, if you want me, a person who was never trained to manage my time, to get my assignments in on time, with efficacy,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to manage my time. I've got this to do after school. My family's got this. I've got to wake up early in the morning. You want me to sit in class after class. We need to be teaching our students how to manage their time, really above all else, because me and time is our greatest commodity because we talked about it. We can make more money, can't make more time. We've got to be able to maximize our time. And from that, the world is our oyster. We want to tell
Mm-hmm.
kids about unlimited potential. We got to teach them how to manage their time.
It's a life skill. Life skill
It's a
is
life skill.
time management is a life skill, just like taking care of your health, just like taking
Right.
care of your wealth. And all those three things work in tandem together, because if you
Right.
have plenty of time but you don't have money and you're in poor health, you have really good health but you got no money, and
Right.
so you've got plenty of time. You've got to kind of shift it
Mm-hmm.
until you hit that ideal sweet spot. And then, hopefully you're blessed with good health, hopefully you're blessed with good time, and hopefully you'll one day be blessed with good wealth.
Right.
But it's having the understanding that, some people are born or have in their lives some handicaps, but sometimes they maximize it to their fullest potential. Chad, you remember Chad? Chad's health is not perfect compared to everybody else, but he maximizes his time as much as he possibly can, takes advantage of it as much as he possibly can. And it boils down to understanding that we live in just such a very blessed time as compared to, generations ago, in which your time was really focused around hunting and gathering. You can go to school now to learn a trade, to go do a job. Whereas back in the day, you go far back enough in time, your time was, you've got so much daylight left to hunt for food, to kill the animal, and then you got to get it back to the cave before night falls, and something comes at you after night. So your point, that time skill is very important. Now, if that means you have to go back to a prehistoric mindset to kind of act in that way, then maybe you have to for a little
I
season
think
to be efficient with time. Yeah.
And I think you do. I think you do. I think that's where it starts. And that's kind of I don't know. I think I've mentioned this, but I've kind of coined that the first aspect of success is assessing time. And when we really can assess our time, we can spur that sense of urgency. And so we all need that sense of urgency, especially if someone feels stagnant and is trying to go to that next level. There's got to be a sense of urgency to shift them out of how they're doing things so that they can see, I'm wasting time. Because if you're stagnant, then there's time being wasted, because there's opportunity to be working towards something and seeing that progress manifest in your life. So that's the first aspect of success as I see it, really assessing your time, having that sense of urgency. And once you have that entry point, everything else goes from there. Then you start plugging. And you mentioned health and money. One thing about assessing our time is we can more efficiently work on everything. That's the beauty of having the resource of time and being able to see our lives through that lens and actively adjust based on our time. We can focus on whatever it is we need. And one of the things I like to think about is when you assess your time properly, you also are able to see the things you need to be accountable for, or the things where you need accountability. Because if I'm assessing my time in the right way, I know I have time for, let's say, A, B, and C and D, but I know E, I have time for that, but I struggle with it, but I can see it clearly, and I've got time allotted for that. Let me get some help. Let me get some accountability. And I think a lot of times, because we don't assess our time well, we don't identify the areas where we need accountability. And sometimes we feel like we want to do we'll write that down like, okay, I'm trying to do this, but we can't do it because we don't know how to do it, but we end up wasting time thinking about it, because we really should be applying our time to something that we're good at and getting help in that area that we're not.
You're right. You're right. And so, two things. One thing that I've heard from people that are successful business people, and they've got a lot of money or successful in business, they will move very, very quickly. The more successful they are, the quicker they move. Why? Because when they want to do something, they know it's going to use up that valuable commodity time, like you're talking about. So they will move very fast. But that's because they know that if you're going to waste my time, then, and it's within the lens of business, they don't have time for that. Now, those same successful business people, they always have to have a downtime, and decompress time too, because they're human, not a robot. So they'll take the time for things that they love and enjoy. So what this makes me think about is an anime called Death Note. I don't know if you've ever heard of it before,
I don't think so.
but if I'm not mistaken, and I could be mistaken because people that have watched that anime, they would probably say you're butchering it. That's not how that show goes. So what I remember, this guy, he comes in possession of this book, and in this book, he actually has the ability to he could see the time that people have left over the top of their head. And with if you write your name in the book, you die.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but he can see. So what would life be like if we could all see and you can't change the counter? You can't change it. You know, you've only got a day left to live. And you're like 21 years old. How psychologically, you know, how crazy that would be if you could look at everybody and you could see how much time they have left on their head. Everybody could see it all at once. If everybody could see that, would the world devolve into chaos? Would we treat each other with more empathy? I don't know. But that's why we don't know the number of days that we have.
But what's interesting about what you said, first of all, that was like kind of chilling. Like, wow,
it is
that's
chilling.
Deep. Yeah. But one thing,
the Japanese also, are deep people, by the way.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not Japanese. Just a disclaimer. I'm not Japanese. So, but I definitely admit.
We know. I think
some people don't know. People don't know that I'm not Japanese. I don't know.
But one interesting thing about that as well, what you just mentioned, is we really should, to some degree, wake up every day with a sense of urgency. You know, it won't be that, because that's not even natural for us to have this dire sense of urgency every day. But there should be a sense of urgency that says, I've got to be a good steward of my time today, because I don't know. And there's something, we talked about purpose earlier. We should be saying there's a purpose in me that needs to manifest, that needs to get out, to touch, to impact the world. I have to be a good steward of my time today to help make that happen, to fulfill my potential while I'm here on this earth. And that's a big part of that sense of urgency.
Yeah.
And we have to create that consciously for ourselves. And I think sometimes individuals end up kind of waiting for it to happen, but we've got to create that, consciously create that sense of urgency to help ourselves move forward. And you mentioned there was something else you shared earlier. It might come back to me, but yeah, okay.
Well, that's the importance of having conversations in different frames and different points of view. That's why it's James and James. What we're talking about is how we both see life in different ways, but also, in spite of seeing it in different ways, we notice there's common themes in life itself that are kind of undeniable. Like, for example, regardless of how people view certain things, there are certain physical laws that cannot be denied, like gravity. If you can believe that gravity doesn't exist, but you just try walking off a 30-story building, gravity exists. There are both physical, biological truths that cannot be denied. And there are also, as much as people don't want to kind of admit this, there are also spiritual, supernatural truths that exist. And how do you explain miracles? You can't explain a miracle. How do you explain a wonder? I wonder how that happened. You can't explain it. Now, over time, science tries to explain, but all it's doing is trying to put a box around something that's completely outside of our understanding. So it's important that we do understand that time is very finite, and that it is, I think, very important that your theme of this current work that you're doing is about refresh your time, refocus your time, and rebuild your time, because people kind of move away from that. They forget that.
Exactly. And I do remember now what I was gonna say earlier, but now I'm gonna also say something to that point. So with refreshing focus rebuild, the unique part about it is it starts with the foundational principle that, you know, time, of course, is finite, as you mentioned, and so it governs everything. And so we're refreshing the vision. So what's interesting is, in order to, trying to think, let me just say, it's refresh the vision, refocus your goals, and rebuild the plan. And since we're talking about it, I think it's so important for us as individuals to constantly refresh this vision. The vision is what we want, but what's interesting about that, we talk about spiritual principles, is vision doesn't change. So I'm going to clarify, because vision is different from ambition, and then we can also have, you know, a vision of what we want, like say for a job, whatever. But I kind of look at that a little differently. When I think of vision, I think it's the God-given endowment that's deeply embedded in us about how we see our lives, our mission, what we want to do. So really what we're doing is we're revealing the vision. It's given to us in pieces through time. And as we accomplish the goals, hence refocus our goals, we refocus the goals to help us meet seasonal objectives that reveal the vision even more, reveal the manifestation of the vision even more. And we do that through building a plan every month, you know, reassessing, implementing. And I just think it's important, that aspect, for us to understand that, you know, vision is rebuild. It's actually a constant. And something that I thought about just this morning was, when I moved to Montgomery, I had a heart and a passion and a desire to minister to young people in schools, and to be a speaker in schools. And today, 15 years, 16 years later, that's still what I want to do. Now, I've had many different things I've done, goals I've set, but I realized that vision never changed. And
No,
I'm
it just
thankful
took a
for that
different
clarity.
form.
It
Yeah,
took a different form, but it
it's like
never
water. It,
changed.
it got hard, then it got solid, and then it became a
Yeah.
vapor.
Exactly, exactly. And so the other thing that I remember from when you were talking earlier, you were sharing about uh, how a lot of successfully wealthy people, they tend to do things quickly. One reason is because they're not gonna waste time; they want to get it done. Another reason that they can do it is because they've got the clarity, because of how they've managed their
Yes,
time, how they see their time.
yes, that's
So
the other
when
side.
it's time to move, they have their pieces. It's concise. Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
do this. Boom, got it. So that's
Also,
an
too,
important aspect.
they've had the experience of it. You know, it's like with anything. I think it's what 10,000 hours to be considered a master of something. You have to put in at least 10,000 hours. There's some type of weird statistic,
Right.
but if you think about it, if you spend 10,000 hours going through deal after deal after deal after deal, your body, your mind, your soul, and your spirit is able to kind of recognize and discern, you know, not worth my time. But
Right.
might spend a little bit more time. It's like, it's worth my time, you know?
Exactly. Exactly.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, the vision that God has put on everyone's heart, He has a plan and purpose for everyone. It is very big, it's very grand, but it's also important to remember, if your life is built to have a family, that it's okay that the only people that your vision is imparted to is your family.
Right.
It
Right.
doesn't have to be so big at the consequence of your family,
Right.
and sometimes that's going back to individual A, B, and C, is
Mm-hmm.
being able to recognize the value of those closest to you, because
Right.
those are the ones that are with you more so than your friends or your coworkers or your acquaintances or the people you meet on the street. They know you better than sometimes you know you. So they're not 24/7 inside your mind, but they're close. They're a lot closer than most. And we all have different backgrounds when it comes to our family. But again, that goes back to the point, we as human beings, we are not completely isolated, born alone. I didn't just pop in this earth. I had to come from a mother. Father and a mother had to come together to make me. Inherently, human beings were never meant to be alone. And since the very dawn of creation itself, you think about it, if we were meant to be asexual, we would just cell divide. You see?
Right.
And so when we try to go against the very nature of our own being, well, then it seems like that's where problems start to your word today. This is, guys, if you're listening, the word of the day is manifest. But to your thing about vision, when I was doing a small group for dollars and cents, you remember dollars and cents. Two things that I said back then was, you can have your vision statement and then you can have your mission statement. So what's your vision statement? Your vision statement is something even higher than your mission statement. Mission statement, you can find those in I think corporate bylaws or whatnot, but I've heard mission statement before I heard the vision statement. Vision statement is, to reference the Holy Bible, that's when the Lord told Moses, you're going to go to Mount Sinai. The mission statement was how he got there. That vision it's something so core. It's inside of it. It's that thing that just deeply resonates in our heart when we're doing it. That's our vision. The mission is how we get there. And that's how you kind of layer it out. The vision statement it's something it can be something as big as beyond your life, or it could be something that's within your life. But the mission is how you get there, those steps that you take to get there. But the vision, that's where you're trying to get to.
I agree.
That's a pound.
That's a pound, man. I was gonna say it, but that's a pound. So that's what we do.
So Edie, what she does, she picked this up from me, and that's at some point I said, "Good job," and I threw her a thumbs up. So when she was with us a couple Saturdays ago to go see Mr. Savage, she was sitting there coloring her little coloring stuff, and then she'd throw a little thumbs up. So it's this is like one of her first social interactions outside of the house with completely different group of people, and she was just so well behaved and just so awesome, and she just threw up this little little thumbs up every time she did something, did something good, and again, as human beings, we're not meant to be alone. We're not meant to be alone, because look, if she was by herself, she wouldn't be able to do that socialization. We have to remember that, like, the actual physical socialization, there's something built inside of us that it's enjoyable when the guys all get together and we just cutting up and having a good time, or when it's your family getting together, playing, having a good time.
When we're here on James and James.
Yeah. Here on James and James, but that's what I love about this is it was not the last one, but the previous one. Somebody watched it, and that person said that they were actually really moved by the conversation that Blake and I was having. Like, they could relate to the conversation that we were having. So there's a beauty in this format that even though we're not sitting in a room together having this conversation, I think it would take it up another notch when we are in the room together having it. But that's one of those things. When we're doing that, buddy, that's saying something special. But the fact, the miracle of technology, that we can do this, and somebody who's never watched this can find the conversation so engaging that they want to watch it, they want to listen to it.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about this format is I can listen to this while I'm on the road, or if I really something really catches my attention, it's like I want to see it,
Right.
you know.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
that's the beauty of this, and that's
Uh,
why I enjoy doing it.
right. And I do too, man. I really do. So I guess before we go today and get started with our Saturdays, I'm gonna mention this is really random, but man, I didn't know the NBA, I'm sorry, the NFL draft happened. I totally missed it. Like I
Oh
wanted to
my
watch it this year
gosh!
because I was trying to
Oh,
see
I knew it happened.
I was
I
trying
knew
to
it
see where
happened.
Bryce Young was gonna go, and clearly he went
You
number
know he
one. But
went number one,
yeah, like now I know. I was on the ESPN app
but
trying
who
to watch
went
the
number five?
James. I don't know. I didn't even see it. I didn't even see the draft.
Okay,
The
well
only
I
thing I saw
well I
was
know
where he went.
another University of Alabama player went number five.
Oh, yeah, I do know. I didn't know what you. I thought you just said like randomly who went number five,
No,
not
no,
that,
because it
not
was
what
like
Alabama player went number five. I know he was a lineman. I forget his
yeah, and it's
name.
like the first time ever that I think someone from the same two players from the same college went top five. There was some crazy stat about it.
Oh, that's interesting because just a few years ago, it was the first time ever, or something like that, where five players went in the first round, and that was from Alabama. They
Yeah,
had five to go in the first
but
round, but not two in the top 10, I guess, or
but
two, not two in the top
it
five. It was like two in the top 10, though. Yeah.
and I have to go and check that, but I could have sworn it said top five. But that's the amazing thing is about the pursuit of perfection, which kind of leads you to the pursuit of excellence. That program, man, of the University of Alabama. How are
Okay.
they ever going to find another Nick Saban to do what he's done?
But you know what's interesting? They won't find another Nick Saban. But what I love more, and this is a testament to um when we're operating in our purpose and doing what we're supposed to do, there should be fruit. There should be something replicated.
Mm,
And he's been
yeah,
able to replicate his success with the coaches that were under him. Now
yes,
Kirby Smart has won two straight national championships. He was under Saban. So he's
yeah,
replicated his success. So I
yeah,
trust that somebody on that staff there will be able to carry on that
yeah,
torch when he leaves because he's
yeah,
been able to replicate that success.
yeah. It's
That's a great
amazing.
thing. Yeah.
It's amazing. I love it. That's it. How sports is the highest form of
Yeah. I
of
love it, man.
competition.
I was at a high school softball game last night. I love it, man. Speaking of that, I while I was watching, I really resolved that I'm gonna get back into coaching. I love it, man. I love softball and baseball, and it's so funny because growing up it was baseball, and then I coached girls softball, 4 and 5 year olds back in 2011, and
What
I
you
didn't
used to
think,
play baseball?
bro. Not only did I play baseball, I could have taken baseball to probably a professional level, at least minor league. Yeah, I was
My
really
God,
a standout, to be honest.
how did this never
That's not
come
me
up in any of
bragging.
our conversations?
Because we only talk about basketball.
Well, yeah, because I love basketball.
so
Okay.
so
All right. All right.
okay,
All
yeah,
right. All
anyway.
right. All right. All right. All
So
right.
yes.
Before we get too far down the road, let me put this like recommendation for you.
Okay.
Ace of the Diamond.
Mhm.
Ace of the Diamond. And
Need
I
to
don't
watch
care how
that.
much you smile or laugh. It is a great anime about baseball, high school baseball.
Okay.
Now, how you'll be able to watch that, don't worry, we'll work that out. But I highly recommend it. The passion, I could care less about baseball. Just the same thing as about volleyball and cycling. But Ace of the Diamond is one of the great animes about baseball. I'm gonna you'll see. You'll see.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna check
Yes.
the Ace of the Diamond.
Yes.
All right, for sure, man. Appreciate that.
Oh
All
yeah.
right, bro. Man,
And I cut you off. You were saying something about baseball.
oh yeah, man. All I was saying, I was just coming back. I was just coming back to the fact that before I had coached softball, I never I I didn't see softball like I saw baseball because
Oh my
growing up it was
gosh.
baseball. Then I coached softball
Yeah.
4 or 5 years, and that kind of opened my mind up. And now,
Yeah.
me having girls, 3 girls, uh,
Bro,
that
you'll end
kind
up being a softball coach.
and so like now I was just telling my wife last night, I kind of I see softball and baseball because they're already very similar, almost identical. But
Yeah.
now I have a love for the game for both of them.
Yes.
Like so that's really cool for me. So I know I'm gonna be coaching, but I'll share this last thing and we can go. But I I used to have a hard time for a while watching the Major League Baseball because I just felt like I didn't fulfill my potential because I kind of lost my
Oh,
passion for it.
yeah.
And but anyway, that's definitely another story for another day. But that's how I could. So if I one day watch it again, it'll probably be like with my daughters and things
Yeah.
like that. But I'm able to separate that from the fact that I still love the game.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
I can separate any reluctance or whatever and anything. I can separate that from the fact that I really do love the game. So that was like that was a not a milestone, but it was definitely significant for me last night, kind of reaching that resolve in my
It's
heart.
a
Like
huge
I'm gonna
marker.
coach again.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's huge, man. Because that for you, that'll be a now it's a heck of a commitment, but it'll be a good outlet,
yeah,
you know?
definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
So
Hmm. Cool.
cool, man.
Cool. Coach Derek. I
Yeah,
love it.
man.
I love it.
It's a plan. I think it's a plan. Yeah. All right, bro.
All right, bro.
Man, enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Oh, I
Tell
will.
the
We're
family
driving to Georgia.
y'all have a safe and fun trip. Tell the family I say hello.
I will.
All right, bro.
All
Peace.
right. Love you.
Love. Love you too.